Welcome into the show. It is Daniel Wertman coming to you live from the Dream Edge 8 Sports Studios. It is 9 a.m. on the East Coast. This is your 6 a.m. West Coast wake-up call in all time zones in between and around the world. And the eyes are around the world today as the U.S. women's national team kick off their campaign in this year's 2019 World Cup in France. They play later today at 3 p.m. Eastern against Thailand, and we will all be watching. All eyes will be on them to see how they look in their warm-up matches. They were winning. They have a winning streak coming in, but they were not convincing in the way that they were playing. So it was more of a execution style of play, and that really is going to be an issue for this team. We have the biggest collection, the best collection of talent in the world on the women's side, and I don't think that is disputable. Player for player, talent for talent, we have the deepest roster of individual players in the entire world. So if we win or if we lose, it's not going to be about talent. It's going to be about how we play. So it's more of a tactical scenario, a tactical issue that is going to come into play in terms of success, on-field success. If you look at a team like Spain or a team like France, for example, who have already played their opening games, there is a sense of collective, a sense of team in the way that they play tactically. There's connecting together. It's very, very beautiful in the way they play, quite honestly. And when you look at the Spanish national team, player for player, they do not match up against the U.S. women's national team as individuals, but as a collective. They are a very difficult team to play against, and have the ability to keep possession, have the ability to work together. So the sum of their parts is greater than their individual pieces. When we look at the U.S. women's national team, too often our success is based on individual performances. So one of the key components for this World Cup, this 2019 campaign for the U.S. women's national team, is how well does the collective play as a unit? The 11 players on the field, how do they play together? How do they connect together? If the U.S. women's national team tactically and in terms of a unit, if they're able to connect together and stay connected together and play a possession-based type of game and are able to control the game with the ball, they're nearly unbeatable. I mean, that's the talent level on display. If the midfield of the U.S. women's national team can control the middle of the pitch and give the forwards and wingers the opportunity to take chances, to get forward, to run at back lines, the U.S. women's national team are going to be in really, really good shape in this World Cup. But, and this is the big but, if the team doesn't stay connected, and connected does not just mean, proximity physically on the field. When I'm using the word connected, what I mean is that the rhythm, the rehearsed movements, player movements on the field, being able to be in good passing lanes, meaning we're able to keep possession, those kind of things, right? Staying connected, meaning that your team is set up to not only win the ball but keep the ball and essentially dominate possession. If the U.S. women's national team is unable to do that, if they are unable to control the middle of the pitch and they play a France or they play a Spain, that's when they open themselves up for potential trouble. Now, it doesn't mean that they will definitely lose. Now, that's the case for other teams around the world. In the case of the U.S. women's national team, that's not the fear that if we don't have the ball, we can't win. It's that if we don't have the ball, that's the best chance we have to lose. And so the real important piece here is, how does this team play? Do they play calm? Do they play relaxed? Or do they go into every match carrying the burden of being the defending champions? Do they carry the burden of being the global standard that everyone is looking to reach in terms of individual players and in terms of that prize, World Cup champions? So when we watch these matches today, at 9 Eastern, we have New Zealand and the Netherlands. At 11 Eastern, at noon Eastern, we have Chile and Sweden. And then again at 3 Eastern, United States and Thailand. When we look at these matches, you're going to see different levels of play and individual levels in terms of player performances. You're going to see a big gap in these matches compared to the individual talent of the U.S. women's national team. But where the U.S. women's national team has traditionally gotten trouble is when they come up against teams that play well together as a collective. And the reason why that's such an important point, the reason why that's a big deal, is not only is that the window in which we can get caught out, the place where we can get into trouble as a team, but it's also that it's unnecessary. We have, roster spot by roster spot on this U.S. women's national team roster. We have the talent to be the best in the world. We are the reigning World Cup champions. Our issue is the collective. It is the ability to play together as a team, to execute, to keep possession. I think back to the 92 Olympics, and the USA basketball was frustrated that they were not at the top of the game and that their best players were not playing in the Olympics. They changed the rules, and those rule changes, believe it or not, have had effects on soccer ever since then. But one of the rules that were changed, and one of the things that was put in place, is called the Ted Stevens Act, and we've talked about that on this show before, as it relates to soccer. But in this case, the main impetus for this law change was actually the 92 Dream Team, and giving them, as professional athletes, the ability to play in the Olympics under the U.S. Olympic Committee, USOC setup. They couldn't play before. It was a U.S. thing. It wasn't an international thing. And so that rule change took place, and we saw the greatest basketball team ever assembled. Michael Jordan, Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, the list goes on and on and on. Incredible talent, top to bottom. And if you go and watch any documentaries, or if you read anything or talk to anyone that covered that team, they will tell you that the best matches during that era, getting ready for the Olympics and the Olympics themselves, the best matches were actually the internal scrimmages. That's how loaded this roster was. That the best basketball games were the 92 Dream Team scrimmaging against themselves. They go into the Olympics and they just obliterate everyone in the 92 Barcelona games. But the key to this was not just individual performances. What made them so good was how they played as a team. They didn't just have the best talent. They didn't just have the best players. And they didn't just have the best player who became the best player of all time in Michael Jordan. They had an ability to connect together. They had the ability to find each other, passes, cover each other with defense. And then their individual talents then took over from there. It was incredible to watch. There has never been a basketball team as good since, and there will likely never be a basketball team as good ever. That collection of talent was unbelievable. And the key to that whole campaign was that talent gelled together as a team. The sum of their parts were just as good or better than they were as individual players, as individual talents. They played as a unit, as a team, and they were unstoppable. And if we look at the U.S. women's national team and we look at our players, there are parallels to that 92 Dream Team in terms of individual talent compared to the rest of the world. There is a clear difference individually when you go roster position by roster position with a U.S. women's national team and national teams around the world. There are very few teams that can give them a game if it's just based on individual players. But the issue that we have, and we have had for a while, is that our U.S. women's national team has not been set up to play and exploit the talent gap, meaning that the sum of their parts is not leveraging that talent for success. They're winning because of their talent, but despite their play as a unit. And we've seen that in these warm-up games, and that's the element that I'm concerned about as we go into this tournament. I don't have any concerns about them getting out of the group, but as they go deeper into this tournament, that is the area that I'm concerned about, is does this team come together? Can this coaching staff actually get this team set up for success as a unit, as a collective? If they do figure that out, if they do find a way for the U.S. women's national team to gel together and play on the field as a unit and leverage the sum of those individual talents, they'll be unstoppable. So far, we've not seen that. We've not seen that under Jill Ellis. Her coaching and her MO has not been to create that kind of play. It's been let's work together as a team, but let's rely more on individual performances. And I think it's a mistake. I think if we had that mentality of playing as a collective and really dominating possession on the field and really playing and connecting together as a team, as a unit, we would actually leverage and put our individual players in even better positions on the field to exploit weaknesses, score goals, and win matches. So we will be following, we will be rooting and hoping to see more success as this 2019 World Cup campaign kicks off today for the U.S. at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time against Thailand. Coming up after the break, we have Haley Carter, and it's going to be, I think it's going to be a great interview. She's got such a good, diverse background and insight into the game. It's going to be worth watching for sure. The sponsor this half hour is Dutkick Brand. They are the maker of soccer products like planners. They have cards where you can draw out plays. They have journals. I mean, it's really, really good stuff. Check them out at dutkickbrand.com. That is DUTKIG brand.com. When you place an order, use the promo code DWSHOW to get 10% off your order and support this show. Again, that is DWSHOW. And you'll get 10% off your order and support this show. We will be right back after this with Haley Carter. Welcome back in this Tuesday morning. We are delighted to have joining us Haley Carter. She's a former United States Marine Corps officer and retired American professional soccer player. She's the former assistant coach for the Afghanistan women's national football team and the associate chair for the United Soccer Coaches Women's Coaches Advocacy Group. Haley, welcome to the show. How are you this morning?
I'm good, Daniel. I'm good. Thank you for having me.
So that was a mouthful of an introduction. Hopefully, I didn't butcher too much in that intro. But
no, you did great.
I want to ask you, as you have had an extensive background in the military. What was it like being in the military and being a soccer player, soccer fan, and all of your stations and your travels? Is it a sport that the military is engaging in terms of conversation, following, watching when you guys are stationed abroad?
Yeah. So, and obviously being in the Marine Corps, we're Marines first and foremost above anything else. And so I was actually really fortunate to be able to play all-armed forces soccer while I was in the Marine Corps. And we can talk about that a little bit later. But the best part about being a soccer player in the Marine Corps is on deployments, and whether they were combat deployments in Iraq or they were humanitarian aid missions in Southeast Asia, it's always a conversation starter. So it's either a conversation starter or it's a sort of a bridge builder. I participated in soccer games in Iraq against the 7th Iraqi Army Division or with our Iraqi interpreters, and when they realize like you're a woman that can play the game, their heads just explode. And then it becomes this really amazing thing. And people from all different backgrounds will come together around the game. I was in South Korea on a humanitarian aid mission, and I made a bet against some ROC Marines that my group of Marines could beat their Marines in soccer. And we staged a game, and they completely whipped us. It was embarrassing, but it was a lot of fun because it got them off of their base for a day, and we were able to have a good time. And we'd been working together doing exercises for 45, 60 days by that point, so we knew each other really well. So it was a great way to sort of end our time together. But yeah, and I think the military, the Marine Corps, they tend to care more about sports like, and this is not going to surprise you, but they tend to care more about sports like wrestling, boxing, rugby, not as much the non-contact sports. But I was really fortunate. Like I said, I had COs that supported me, commanding officers that supported me in playing all-armed forces soccer. And it was, great publicity for our units. And obviously they care about athleticism, and being an athlete is important in the military. So, yeah. Long story short, yeah.
So, backing up, you grew up in Texas, and won a lot in high school, and then you decide to go to the U.S. Naval Academy, and you play 4 years at the U.S. Naval Academy. What led you down the path towards military? Going to the Naval Academy, military service after you finished up at the Naval Academy.
Well, everybody who goes to the Naval Academy has a service obligation when they graduate. So that I can tell you, I made the decision probably between my junior and senior year at Navy to go Marine Corps, because I had met several officers that were on the yard or the campus, the yard is what we call it, that I just really clicked with their leadership style. Also, I don't really like being on ships. Running on a treadmill, facing a gray wall, moving back and forth, kind of an unenjoyable experience. And I really like sunlight, so the Marine Corps was kind of a no-brainer for me. But my decision actually to serve came earlier. I was watching this show on the Discovery Channel. I must have been in 7th grade or 8th grade, and maybe 8th grade, and it was featuring all of the service academies. And I remember watching that show and telling my mom, I really want to go to Navy. And then as I, was getting closer, I was being recruited, getting closer to graduation, I was a little bit hesitant on whether or not I was going to apply or if I could really even get in. But I went to their summer camp, had a great time, and was sold. And so that was where I wanted to go. And even though I had offers at other Division I schools where I probably would have gotten a lot more playing time my first 2 or 3 years, I knew that I wanted to go to Navy, and that was my goal, and that's what I did.
So you got to see the world. You were stationed all over the world. You spent some time in Hawaii, not a bad outpost
That was awesome
to be stationed at.
Yeah. Miss it every day.
Right. I've yet to meet anyone who's either been there or lived there who says different than what you just said. So
I don't know. You'd be surprised.
Really?
I have met some people that are stationed out there that hate it. They get island fever and they get tired of it. I was never like that. I was always outside. There's always something cool going on. There's a triathlon or a half marathon, or there's always something cool that's going on. We've got great soccer. I never got tired of it. But there are plenty of people that are from the mainland that are they can't handle the isolation. But yeah, so those guys are party poopers. We don't hang out with them.
No doubt. When you did your service, you did 8 years in the military. This is after 4 years at the U.S. Naval Academy, and then you kind of try to jumpstart a professional career. After doing your service time, what was that transition like? Did
sort
you?
Of. So it's kind of one of those things where all the stars just sort of align. And when I transitioned out of the Marine Corps, I transitioned out and I took a job in Austin, Texas, working for a global technology, like electronics manufacturer. And like I said, it was a global role. I could work anywhere. I was either on the phone at 8:00 in the morning with Poland or 8:00 at night with China. It was kind of one of those things. It didn't really matter where I was working because the people I was supporting were all over the world. And I had been doing that for maybe 6 months. And then the Dynamo had mentioned establishing an NWSL expansion team. I didn't believe it, because I've lived through the 3 iterations of the league, and I thought that the league was a little too premature for it to start expanding because we had just finished the 2013 season. And but lo and behold, I was wrong, and they established the Dash, and they brought Tony DeChico in, and then they brought Randy Waldrum in, and I kind of watched the development of the roster, and I had reached out to Randy because I knew that they were going to need another goalkeeper, because at that point they only had 2. With Aaron McLeod and Bianca Henninger. And so I just kind of went out on a limb and reached out to him, and we touched base, and he was like, yeah, Haley, you're in Texas, come to tryouts and we'll go from there. And so I went to open tryouts, and the rest is sort of history. I played for him for 3 seasons. And after the end of the first season, I actually moved to Houston with my son and continued playing. And then I actually changed, and I thought, well, I'm in Houston. I should probably find a job in Houston. So I took a position here in Houston. And so I actually worked a full-time job the entire time I was playing. I have a family, I have a son to support who's amazing. So it was an interesting transition for me because it definitely was not your traditional transition. And I had a lot of competing priorities, other than playing. And so it was great though. And then later on, we had other moms on the team. We had Jess McDonald come in, and so it was nice. It was a lot of fun. We had Megan Cushing, who is Kaylee Ohai's sister. She was training with us for a while, and they obviously have kids. And so we had a really good group together. And Randy was always really supportive of working things out and family and work and managing all of that. So I was really fortunate.
While there with the Houston Dash, you started to volunteer and then work as a coach. What for sure. What was that? Where did that interest come from? More than just being a player and being a coach.
I knew I wasn't going to be able to play forever. especially with, the competing priorities that I had going on. And I've just been really fortunate with all of the things that the game has given me. So I wanted the opportunity to be able to influence others, and helping them kind of find their way and path with the game, and influence their lives through the game. And so it was sort of a natural thing for me. And so I started with Houston Tillotson at the end of that first season before I actually moved to Houston. Houston Tillotson is historical Black college in Austin. Phenomenal staff that I was working with. Andy Tunicliffe, he's amazing. I had great players, girls that were working 2 or 3 jobs, going to school just to be able to afford to play. It was amazing. And then I transitioned to Sam Houston State when I moved to Houston because they were closer. Working in Austin wasn't going to be feasible. And yeah, I really love working at a high level with, kids who are, really enjoying the game. And of course I can coach youth, and I do coach youth, but I love the college level. I love the senior high school level, and it's just kind of where my passion is. People give me a hard time about that. But that's just the reality. And so, yeah, it was sort of a natural progression for me, knowing that I wasn't going to be playing forever, and I still want to be involved in the game because the game has been so much of my identity my entire life, and I wasn't going to walk away from it when I retired. So I wanted to make sure that I was setting myself up for success as I made that transition from play.
At what point did you get the opportunity, or did the conversation start for you to be a part of the coaching staff for the women's national team for Afghanistan?
So I was in it was in my last year of playing. So it was in 2016. I had just negotiated my contract with Hummel USA, who's my personal sponsor at the time. And Hummel International at that time was the kit sponsor for the Afghan Football Federation. And they were getting ready to do their new kit launch with hijab, built-in hijab and base layers that go under the kit. It's a custom kit. It's a beautiful kit. I love it. It's gorgeous. They put a lot of time and thought and detail into it. And they said, hey, we know you've deployed to the Middle East. We know that the women of the Middle East, have a special place in your heart. We've got to introduce you to Khalida Popal. She's the program director for the national team, and she's doing an internship here. And so, of course, I said, yeah, definitely. And we got in touch, and we just hit it off right away. And I asked her, I said, if you need any help, let me know. And about 2 weeks later, she called me and asked me how serious I was about that offer. And I said, what do you need? And she said, well, we need a goalkeeper coach. I'm like, got that, no problem. And then she's like, and I need help with all of these other things because I'm trying to build this team from scratch. So we sort of set this program out to put together a training camp and fundraise because the Football Federation was not supporting us financially, and which we're hearing a lot about with other nations, World Cup and Jamaica not getting the financial support. That's happening all the time. And so that was happening with us with the Afghanistan Football Federation. And so trying to fundraise and scout and recruit and identify players. Half of our players are in Europe and North America and Australia, and the other half are in Kabul. So trying to identify those players that are outside of Afghanistan that we could bring into a training camp, and managing travel and logistics and visas and all of those things you'd normally associate with sort of a director of ops type role. Those were the things that I was managing in addition to coaching. So yeah, we just hit it off right away and never looked back.
That process, that time on the ground, working through basically building a women's national team from scratch, and not only just going through those steps, but also the geopolitical aspects of that whole situation as well. What was that like compared to your career and opportunities playing as an American? Growing up in Texas, you're playing, in high school and then in college, and then, you go into the military and then you come back and then you play professionally with the Houston Dash. What was it like as a coach? Now you're in an environment that's completely different from what you experienced. Can you describe that for us?
Well, I have to say my experience in the Marine Corps helped quite a bit, um, because I'd been in that environment before, and so I kind of knew the obstacles that they were facing and how I navigate, especially the geopolitical and cultural aspects of it. Were I was accustomed to that. I've it's something that I've grown used to, and I can tell you that the things I've seen in the world and the places that I've been and the people that I've interacted with, like the great thing about our staff with Afghanistan is that we check our privilege and we check our ego at the door. Like that has been a key tenet of our staff all along. Like, and if you can't do that, you're not welcome. And so for us, being in that environment for any of us, I think, to be honest, I think, Kelly, Lindsay, and I were talking about this just the other day, that for people that are new, I think, to the international women's football scene, especially dealing with teams that are in, we'll say, like the lower, below the bottom, below the top 50, and especially from 75 to like 112 in the FIFA rankings. If the first time you're kind of thrusted into that environment, you're somewhat naive. And like I said, I was fortunate because I've dealt with that environment in the Marine Corps. And so I'm used to kind of navigating some of those conversations. And, Kelly is not. And so it's kind of funny. We had this dynamic where I was always sort of the bad guy and Kelly would be the optimistic one and I would be the negative Nancy. And we would kind of get to a solution together, where I would just be like, yeah, I think that's a bad idea. And she'd be like, what about this? I'm like, well, what about that? And so we would work together to find some solutions. But it is a big difference. It's a massive difference. Obviously those women are literally sacrificing their lives to play the game. Like, it's not this cliche esoteric statement. They are literally sacrificing their lives. They're getting spit on. They're getting rocks thrown at them. Playing the game is a life or death thing. And so, to say that it's different is probably the biggest understatement I could put out there. But so the dynamics that we face as coaches, understanding that, for instance, our players can't go to a gym and lift weights. They can't do that as women. They have to work out in their bedroom. And so, our sports scientist, John DeWitt, who put together all of our workouts, we tasked him with, listen, you've got body weight workouts and you've got a space that's about 4 yards by 6 yards for them to be able to work out in. So can you put workouts together that they can manage in that space? And he would go and do that. And so we'd have to get really creative about the things that we were doing and how we could manage that. Another example, they weren't given access. The players in Kabul are never given access to the full-size field that's literally right outside the Afghan Football Federation's doorsteps. So they're typically playing on 7v7 or 9v9 size fields. And then they come and we're training for international friendlies and they're just not fit enough to go 11v11 for 90 minutes, maybe 11v11 for 20 minutes. And so, recognizing that and having to manage that, and it's not their fault. So you can't be upset with the players. They're doing their workouts in their room, but there's only so much that translates to a full-size pitch and training and playing on a full-size pitch. So, and then of course the uniforms that they have to wear and playing covered, and there are just so many differences. And so, like I said, for us as a staff, it was important. You check your privilege and you check your ego at the door, and any preconceived notions you have about the game or how to manage a team or whatever, like, you got to learn as you go. And so that's what we did. And those women have become our family, and there's nothing in the world that Kelly, Kalita, and I wouldn't do to make sure that those girls are taken care of and protected. And I say girls, by the way. I know that it's a big feminist thing to say women, but the reality is I'm talking about 14, 15, 16-year-old girls. So yes, we have some women on our team, but when I say girls, I'm not trying to discredit them. The reality is I've got 14-year-old girls on my team. So yeah.
So obviously,
I need to put that out there. It's a disclaimer.
No, that's good. And I think listening to you recount the experiences, the observations, etc., I think we get a clear picture that you mean well by these ladies or young ladies or girls, as you use that term as well. We definitely can tell in your voice how much you care, the concern you have for those players, not just as being players on a team, but as people, as individuals.
Yeah.
One of the things that's been in the news in the last few days is the fact that the Federation president, Kareem Karamadine, has been banned, received a lifetime ban from FIFA, which just kind of goes to your point about some of the experiences, tribulations, trials, hardships. I mean, we can keep going through, words to describe the situation that these players have had to endure to just for the love of the game, to play and not only to play, but to represent their country. And so in the things that you have seen with these young ladies in their work to become better players, what have some of those conversations been in terms of their dreams, in their aspirations as people or as players, in terms of whether that's playing the game or maybe it's down the road coaching the game, or has the game itself allowed them to dream bigger and aspire to do something maybe that's never been done before in their country?
Yeah, absolutely. For many of our players, they play because they want to inspire other women to come out of their houses um, and to use the game as a tool to explore educational opportunities or avoid being married at a young age or just escape the harsh reality of life in Afghanistan for an hour and a half every day. Use the game as a stress release, and it's a powerful tool, right? And so that has been a main driver for them. Also, something that's huge, the Afghan men's national team won SAF a few years ago. When they won SAF, the South Asia Football Federation Championship, all of our players that were in Kabul remember that day as a day that there was peace across the entire country. Nobody was fighting. Everybody was happy. Everyone was getting along. And that is really stuck out in their, collective memory of what the possibilities are for a national team to be able to bring pride to their country. And they wanted to be able to do that. They wanted to be able to do the same thing and want to be able people to look at the women's national team and see the possibilities that were there. And so that the men really inspired them in that moment. And so that's something that they've carried with them and into our team. And they just want to bring pride to their country and pride to Afghan culture and to the nation and to Afghan people everywhere. So, there's nothing less admirable than that. So, yeah, it's amazing. They're amazing. They're just amazing young women. So.
They truly are. They truly are, and their stories are incredible. And just to hear, I think Americans are guilty of living in a bubble, and sometimes we can't help it.
Yeah.
Right? We don't realize how good we have it.
Yeah.
And I think it's great that you are not only doing the work that you've been doing, but then to be able to tell those stories and share those experiences so that people do get an understanding of what it's like in other parts of the world and some of the challenges that these women face. That our women here in America, not to say that any place is perfect, but there are obviously steeper hills to climb in other countries than what we have here in America. We're blessed in that way. In all of your work, you've gotten recognitions in the military. You've gotten recognitions as a player, in your work as a coach, as an ambassador for the game, etc. And now you are the associate chair for the United Soccer Coaches Women's Coaches Advocacy Group. Can you share a little bit about that project, that group, and what you guys are hoping to achieve through that effort?
Yeah, so the Women's Committee has been around since the 90s, and it's sort of evolved. It's the women's membership group for a while now. It's women coaches advocacy group. And, you know, historically, you know, we were established to be a powerful voice for women in the women's game within the coaching community and within United Soccer Coaches, which is formerly the National Soccer Coaches Association of America. And so, you know, moving into that role and sort of helping with the leadership there, our purpose really is to help United Soccer Coaches in their mission to sort of develop and recognize women coaches in the game, recognize excellence in the women's game. And of course, when we're talking about the women's game, we want to recognize both women coaches and men coaches of women. They're equally important. We want to see the women's game succeed across the board. So, and I think inclusivity matters. You know, you have a lot of men in powerful positions making decisions in the women's game. So, you know, we can't leave them out. And really, it's just to make sure that we're taking care of each other. We're providing opportunities for each other. We're ensuring that there are mentorship and educational opportunities, making sure that women coaches are getting opportunities to be seen and heard, whether it's at the convention, whether it's in social media, whether it's articles in Soccer Journal, you know, and just ensuring that women are being seen and being noticed. And the women who are working really hard, whether it's at the youth level, the high school game, the Division II, Division III college game, Division I, internationally, professionally, that we are capturing the great work women coaches are doing at every level of the game, everywhere. And so it's a little bit of an undertaking, but, you know, something that I've sort of taken to, and I'm working with Samantha Snow, who's the chair of the group, is really delegating and empowering as many young coaches to be involved as possible. So it makes managing those projects a little bit easier. And it's also giving opportunity for us to develop those leadership skills and see where different coaches fit so that we can continue and sort of create a legacy that is ongoing for the Women Coaches Advocacy Group, because that legacy is really important for us to maintain. So, yeah.
The women's game is growing in different parts of the world. We're seeing Europe start to really put some investment resources, pay attention, give interest to the women's game. We're seeing, you know, countries like Spain have some really amazing crowds, England, Italy, etc. And with that, you have these kind of established football cultures, right, and these powers that we know on the men's side of the ledger that are now really starting to you know, put some investment into the women's game. Yeah.
Yeah.
When we look at that, and your background as a player, your background as a coach, and being in and around and involved in the game in the way that you are, what challenges do you see for our U.S. women's national team as these traditional football powerhouses around the globe start to make the women's game a priority in their own countries?
I mean, I don't see an immediate problem, but I see a short to medium term problem, because here's what's happening. I think we're seeing that investment. We're seeing that investment at every level. So, and it's filtering up through their age group. So Spain, you know, you're seeing the Spanish women totally kick ass at the youth World Cup level. And so we're seeing that, you know, Italy this weekend and what they achieved in upsetting Australia. That's not starting at the top, right? It's starting with the youth national teams, and then those players are filtering up to their senior national teams. So we're really seeing development happening in the youth programs. And I don't think that we've seen that recently. I don't think we've seen that since Alice Morgan, you know, was in the youth program, since Kelly O'Hara was in the youth program. We haven't really seen that. I mean, we've got Mal Pugh, we've got Tierney Davidson that's coming up. But I think there's a gap. And so, you know, that's where they're going to start catching up to us. If we don't start changing how we're managing and coaching and programming our youth national teams to be successful, they're going to catch up. They're going to catch up, because when the Megan Rapinos and the Kelly O'Haras and you know, when that group retires, when Carly retires, you know, when that group retires, there's going to be a gap. And I don't know what that future looks like. We have some players that are coming up, but I don't know that we're going to have enough players coming up to be able to fill those gaps successfully. We're not finding success at the youth national team level right now. And so that's a problem. And those countries that you're talking about are finding success because that's where they're investing. And they're really rethinking how they're managing that youth development and that youth coaching and that pipeline. And so, I think that's where U.S. soccer really has an opportunity to make some changes and to make some investment. We can't just be relying on the onesies or twosies that are coming up now through the program. We're going to have to rely more on the youth national team program, I think. And so, and whether it's the youth national team program or it's the NWSL, and I think that's another thing that, we have to look at, the coaching quality and the training environments in the NWSL, because that's where players are going to be developed. And right now, I can't name a national team player other than Jess McDonald, who's a superstar and I love. And again, she's amazing. She played in Houston. I knew that she was going to make good things happen in the coming years. And so, but, other than Jess McDonald, who are we really seeing on the senior national team right now that's been developed through the league? And so I think there's going to be an increasing importance on managing that and what that looks like for player development as a feed. And so, I think that's important. Sure, there's lots of, Casey Short was getting opportunities. I'm disappointed that she wasn't included on the roster. I feel like she should have been. There's some other players as well, but again, they're not consistent in the roster through the league. And so, I think we're going to have to spend some significant money and time and resources in fixing the youth pipeline. And U.S. soccer is going to have to really start looking at, especially if they're going to continue to subsidize the league, the coaching level and training environment that's happening in each of those teams.
When looking at the youth pipeline, and we could spend a month of shows just talking through youth pipeline issues on the boys and girls side across America.
Yeah.
But on the girls side of the ledger for these youth teams and youth development, etc., what are some of the issues that you see? And also, what do you think some of the possible solutions are to fix those issues that you're seeing?
My biggest struggle is with the split between ECNL and the DA. I think by having two teams competing with one another, by having two leagues competing with one another, you're really watering down where that talent is playing and how that talent is being developed. There's a pretty significant parity between some of the teams on the DA side, and your top DA teams are a lot more talented collectively than your bottom level DA teams. And I'd like to see that end, but I don't know that there is a solution to that when you've got ECNL competing against the DA. I don't have a solution for that. That is a problem. And I know that other coaches see it, working at the University of Houston as a volunteer assistant and kind of thinking about what the recruiting landscape looks like, and just having conversations with other college coaches and things that they're struggling with. That's a massive issue. And, even talking with DOCs and other, technical directors at the youth level, they're struggling with that as well. And then, of course, we've still got ODP, and I love ODP. I came up through ODP. Most of the senior women's national team players came up through ODP. I particularly like ODP now because it's kind of that opportunity for players whose families can't afford to spend a mortgage payment a month for them to play soccer, to get the opportunity to be seen, to be coached by high-level coaches. And it gives us an opportunity to sort of find that diamond in the rough player whose parents just don't have the resources to get them on a DA team or on an ECNL team. And so, for me, I do. I'm a huge fan of ODP. I think that there are some significantly positive efforts going on in that space to sort of standardize what's happening nationally with the states and then with the regions. And I love the investment and the effort that's being put into ODP. That was a model that I think worked, and I think we've moved away from that, obviously, because we've commercialized with ECNL and the DA. But that's kind of where my solution lies. I really appreciate ODP and what ODP does, and it's more affordable, and you're not in some locations. Obviously, if you live in a rural space, you're going to have to drive some amount of time. But I know even in South Texas, obviously South Texas is kind of a big state association. We still manage to get out to the Valley. We still manage to get out to West Texas to make sure that we're running clinics and we're running IT camps and we're running training sessions out there so that everybody's getting an opportunity to be seen. A perfect example of that is Sam Estrada, who came out of the Valley. Now she's playing for the Houston Dash. She's getting looks for youth national teams, and she was just decided to play in goal. Her dad played for the Dallas Burn back in the day, and he was working with her. And without ODP, she would have never been found. And so, you see that's happening. And so it's important for me that we continue to invest in that program.
Access and opportunity. It's something we talk about a lot on this show, giving every girl, every boy in this country access and opportunity. And obviously what we do with the opportunity is not all going to be the same. It's not always going to be equal outcome. But if we can give everyone at least an equal chance, I think we would be better off as a country. We would find more talent. There's with all of the resources that we have in this country, I do think we could do a much better job of allocating resources and providing access and opportunity to cities, to communities all across this country, so that we don't have kids on the outside looking in or struggling to find, a chance, and sometimes it only just takes one look, you go and you do a clinic and you find a player and you're like, man, that player's really good. And they would have never gotten a chance had someone not come to watch and to see and then the doors that can open as a result of that. So I think that's some really good insight there as well. So today, coming up a little bit later, we have the U.S. Women's National Team, and Thailand is the U.S. Women's National Team kick off their World Cup 2019 campaign. The defending champions, many have picked to repeat. I think they're definitely always, as is the case, one of the top favorites to win the World Cup. And it's a team that is at a place where when they don't win, there's disappointment. And that means that you have high expectations of yourself, and others have those high expectations of you as well when you are a member of the U.S. Women's National Team. What do you see beginning with today and through this World Cup for the U.S. Women's National Team and their campaign to defend their crown?
I mean, they certainly have the team to do it. I think that they won't have any problem advancing out of the group stage. I think that potential quarterfinal matchup against France is going to be tough. But they're not going to walk into it thinking that they're going to have an easy group stage, and they shouldn't. They're going to walk in and be ready to set the tone this afternoon against Thailand. So. I'm really looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a great tournament. I'm really looking forward to seeing Alyssa Nair excel in this environment. There's been a lot of talk. I know you had Hope on last week, but there's been a lot of talk about Alyssa and sort of filling Hope's shoes. And I think that's unfair to Alyssa and to Hope as well, to be honest, because they're different athletes. They play with completely different styles. So trying to get Alyssa to play like Hope or trying to compare Alyssa to Hope you're shortchanging both of them, I think. They're both amazing athletes and incredible goalkeepers in their own right. And so I'm really looking forward to seeing what Alyssa does on this stage. And God bless Megan Rapinoe. I'm really looking forward to watching her in this tournament. And, so I think it's going to be a great tournament. I'm really excited about it. I can't wait. I'll be in Lyon for the semifinals and the final. A couple different festivals, the Equal Playing Field Initiative and Street Football World Festival are going on at that time, and I'm really hoping that I get to catch them in the semis and the final.
Well, we will all be rooting for them here in America for a repeat, and hope that they can win the 2019 Women's World Cup in France. with them kicking off their efforts today. Haley, thank you so much for coming on the show, sharing your insight in your background in all over the world. And I just want to say thank you for your service to this country with your military service as well. It's because of people like you that we have the ability to live in a country like this. So thank you so much for that service and for coming on the show.
Thanks. It was my pleasure. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. That is Haley Carter. She is doing incredible work, and if you don't know about her, look her up, find her on social media, and connect with her, and I'm sure she would be more than happy to chat with you and share ideas with you, insights with you as well. But doing incredible things, and good luck to her as she continues to do that work here in the U.S. and around the world. Our sponsor this half hour is Charity Water. They provide clean drinking water to people all over the world, and they are changing lives one village at a time, one person at a time. And if you don't know about Charity Water, check them out at charitywater.org. We will be right back after this.
No one, no man, no woman, no child should ever have to drink green water with bugs, with algae, with disease in it. Bad water and a lack of toilets kills more people than all the wars in the world. We know how to bring clean drinking water right now to every single person on earth. And when you can bring water into communities, it truly transforms them. It changes everything. Right? You could know that you'd made a difference. You could know that you had truly impacted the life of a family, of a community, of a region. There was either clean water or there wasn't. We believe in a world where every single person has clean and safe water to drink, and we will continue fighting until that happens.
Well, thanks for tuning in this Tuesday, June the 11th. As I said, the U.S. Women's National Team kicks off their World Cup campaign a little bit later today at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We will be watching, we will be rooting, and hoping for success and a repeat. It's going to be a tough road after the group stages, but they have the talent. Let's see if they can play together and pull it off. Thanks for tuning in. I'd like to thank Haley Carter again for coming on. You know, her story and her work is incredible. You should follow her, check it out. And, you know, again, kudos to her. Goodbye, everybody. We will see you again tomorrow. As always, you can watch at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on DanielWorkman.com. Find me on Twitter or Instagram at Daniel Workman or at Facebook.com/WRKMN. We will see everybody tomorrow.